Okay? That fucking bird that I hate.
That fucking bird that I hate. That fucking bird that I hate.
That fucking bird that I hate.
What?
Hello, it is me again, Declibsed. Back with a thumbnail that'll probably get me on ifunny again. So I'm close to finishing my second playthrough of Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance. And to be honest, I have a lot of shit to say about the story and characters. Like, not shit that it's all bad, but you know what I mean. This video is like way less scripted than most of my others, so we're just gonna dive right into my bullshit. So looking at the story overall, it definitely has improved from the original, but it still has its flaws. The start of the Vengeance route is nearly identical to the start of the Canon of Creation route, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. You know, besides cutting development costs, I think it has sort of this butterfly effect type thing. Just how much Yoko's existence changes the story and how different it is in the end compared to the original Canon of Creation. I think that has its charm in a weird sort of way. The changes that were made to Minato only improved it for me. Like, Yoko's introduction was really good in my opinion. The new dialogue that results from her parting with you, as well as the new quests, fill that void that was just there in the original Canon of Creation. Substantial changes only start after Minato with the whole school arc. This is also the point where the story of Vengeance starts to show its biggest weakness, namely its pacing. I'm just gonna take a big swing at this since I don't want to just recap the entire story. In general, I just feel like that the pacing is off at many points, and it dabbles with multiple random things which only leads to its detriment. Just right here in the school arc, the entire bullying plot thread is just thrown to the side, never to be picked up again after Sahori and Tao die, without truly resolving the conflict that was present. In Creation it was already like not very well handled. In Vengeance it feels like this entire bullying thing is just there to facilitate the differences between Tao and Yoko and give Tao some character development before she just dies and comes back to life. And this also leads perfectly to my second point. Character deaths seem to be a fucking joke in this game. Either the character gets revived, like Tao and Aogami. Tao even dies twice and gets revived both times. Or the character just dies straight up and the plot moves forward like nothing ever happened. In Sahori's case, she just dies and the plot moves on without giving you like any time to let the death sink in, which is one of the few things that Canon of Creation did really well with her character. But the biggest offender is the scene where Tiamat awakens. Tao, Aogami, Yuzuru and Nuwa all die in the span of like 5 minutes, and right afterwards Tsukiyomi just goes, oh yeah, fuse with me into a Nahobino, and the plot just moves forwards. I really would have preferred there to be some time to let the death sink in, especially after the entire cast was presented as being friends with one another, like in the scene where Dazai tried to cheer up Yuzuru after his sister was kidnapped by fucking Konsu. This also ties well into my next point. Miyazu just gets abducted twice, which is a pretty lame thing to reuse as a plot point, but I guess the second time it had a bit more substance, because Miyazu finally spoke up against Yuzuru that she doesn't want him babysitting her his entire life. Some of the deaths, namely Yuzuru's and Nua's deaths, are being addressed later, but I only like it in Nua's case since she wasn't really part of the main group along with Yakumo. They were more like antagonistic towards the main group, so I think it's pretty fitting that her death is only being addressed with Yakumo when you meet him in Taito. Another one of my complaints regarding the pacing is about how Tiamat is handled during the end of the story. Tiamat is just built up as this giant threat that wants to destroy the world, but you just end up not seeing anything of her until you stand in front of the literal throne of creation at the end of the game. Maybe a few cutscenes showing her wreaking havoc or some shit would have been nice. Or maybe having a little fight or something, I don't know, just anything except not seeing her for fucking 10 in-game hours. Despite me shitting on the game for the last 3 minutes, I think the overall story is way more deliberate and coherent than its predecessor, despite its pacing issues. For example, Miyazu's story part has actual build-up now with that side quest during the school part, The later reveal that she is Konsu's knowledge doesn't feel so random anymore like it did in the original, and it makes the already good Miyazu Konsu storyline even better for me. Another character that very much benefited in Vengeance was Yakumo. His backstory finally gets some well-deserved spotlight, and I think it's pretty great. Random citizens of Tokyo will talk to you about his father and how he was killed when Yakumo was still young, and through Yakumo's additional dialogue during the end of the game, you also learn a lot about his character and the way he thinks, which I think is a pretty great addition, since there wasn't much known about Yakumo prior to Vengeance. They really made me like this Rider ripoff. The Qadištu were also very well executed, and also hot, except Aisheth. The designs are great, the lore behind them is good, and their motivations were actually pretty interesting. Also their battle theme really slaps. Another thing that was really great in Vengeance was the lore stuff and overarching plot things. The plot/lore thread about the snake and bull god was well developed and also very well intertwined with the original 5's plot. There's only one thing I would have to criticize there. When you get to Taito, you don't really understand why there's infighting between different factions of Bethel when you haven't played Canon of Creation before that. Otherwise I think it's pretty great. The mandala system also gets some more build up finally. Beelzebub alludes to its existence in his fight, and Samael in his quest explains the nature of the mandala system without name dropping it. Satan and Masama literally reference the true neutral ending of the Canon of Creation, and like tell you that the Nahobino liberated another world from the mandala system but hasn't had an effect on the overall system. It just helps a lot with making Lucifer's bullshit at the end way more believable, instead of just having him tell you about the mandala system. I'm also really happy that Vasuki got destroyed by Beelzebub. Like, Vasuki's fight was ass in the original, Beelzebub's was way better. The other lore stuff that Samael tells you is also really fucking good. The bulldog is fucking Marduk from Babylonian and Mesopotamian mythology, and he killed Tiamat, which is also mythology accurate by the way, to create the whole mandala system and the Throne of Creation. Yeah, I think it's really fucking cool. You can also find some more lore stuff through side quests, like Baal being the first to claim the Throne of Creation, which is also pretty interesting considering that he is also from Mesopotamian mythology. There's just so much shit to dig into lore-wise that no other Megaten game has done before, at least to my knowledge. The two new endings are also something that I very much enjoyed in Vengeance. They're both good and very interesting, even in the broader scope of Megaten, despite being pretty simple. The cutscenes were also a delight to see. You know, it was so disappointing to see the original SMT5 only having one real cutscene for the true neutral ending, and it was really nice to see that they made the extra effort to make two instead of only one cutscene. First off, the ending that I got, the law ending, or people pleaser ending, how I like to call it. I think this ending has the better penultimate boss fight. You know, Masama's cool and all, but fighting the literal incarnation of void and chaos is just absolutely insane. At first I thought her home was just fucking Shekinah from Strange Journey, but they just look similar. The ending itself is a very interesting take on law. You create a world where everyone's wishes are fulfilled, bringing peace and stability. People will have to give up their free will in some sort of way for it to work. It's really unclear in that part. But still, I'll take a nice world over being enslaved but any day of the week, even if I have to give up a little bit of my free will. It would also tie in very well into Tao's theme of sacrifice being a necessity for people to be happy. Like I said, it's pretty simple, but it's still a very good law ending. And I would even go as far as to say that it's one of the best law endings the series has had so far. The Chaos ending, on the other hand, is all about wiping the slate clean for a better world to be born from it. The Empyrean, Throne of Creation, and maybe even the Mandala system are no more. All influences from the previous worlds are just thrown out the fucking window. Marduk is probably really seething at this ending. Otherwise, the specifics are really unclear. Are Kei and Yoko leading humanity to a better world? Is humanity just there to learn from their mistakes and build a better world where there's no suffering? Again, there's just this uncertainty in the endings. Well, I guess uncertain endings are a Megaten staple anyway. I like the Chaos ending a bit more than the Law ending. It makes more sense narratively considering the overarching plot about destroying the mandala system and freeing the world from its shackles. I honestly would have liked to have a few more endings, but 2 really good endings like we have now is fine by me as well. The characters are, well, a mixed bag to say the least. Well, let's start with the elephant in the room, the obligatory re-release girl Yoko. To my surprise, she doesn't feel shoehorned into the cast whatsoever, probably because she was supposed to be in base 5 to begin with, although she doesn't really interact with the other guys in the cast as much, which is a shame honestly. There was potential for interesting interactions between Yoko, Dazai and Yuzuru, seeing how their ideals clash or synergize with one another. Tao is the only character she really has ideological clashes with over the course of the game. These 2 are exact opposites of one another. While Yoko thinks that sacrifices should be avoided at all costs, Tao thinks that they are a necessity for people to be happy. Ridding the world of sacrifices isn't really possible, so she allies herself with the Qadištu and wants to create the world anew. I think her motivations are quite understandable once you learn that she was the one who brought to might, and she was later betrayed by him and sealed away for 18 years. Over the course of the game, she can get a bit overbearing with her views, I think. Like with the kill the bullies and cars suck thing. Cars do suck, by the way. But I think people are overreacting a bit to her character. Her goal is to recreate the world anew, so I'm not surprised that she questions the value of certain things like cars in the society. But I'm not defending the kill your bullies thing, I think that's kinda stupid. Looking at Tao, her character benefited a lot from vengeance. She is more fleshed out compared to the canon of creation, with more direct characterization. She is sort of the people-pleaser type, and is ready to make sacrifices and sees them as a necessity, which is also reflected in her ending. This characteristic of hers is explored to the extreme in the school arc, when she was ready to kill the 2 girls who had bullied Saori before. I really liked seeing how far Tao's conviction in her own beliefs would make her go. I think moments like these are really important in SMT games to make these alignment reps be truly believable, and you wanting to side with them. Although I don't really like that the scene is about killing fucking bullies, and the build-up towards it is also very weak in my opinion. We aren't shown that Saori and Tao are great friends at all, we're just supposed to believe that they are, and it makes us question in the end why Tao is even going that far for her. Even the wholesome moment at the end between those 2 is interrupted by Lila fucking killing them, and Tao just coming back to life, because why not? Besides that, Saori's death was one of the few really good scenes in the original, and they managed to absolutely butcher it now in the canon of vengeance. Also, I'm not saying that bullying should be taken lightly or anything, just please don't resort to murder. Otherwise, she is portrayed as kind of the more reasonable one between her and Yoko. She wants to kind of work off of what she's given, what the world is right now, and make it a better place, instead of burning and destroying everything. Honestly, I think she's fine as a character. Most of the problems come from how the game uses her, I think. Like her wanting to kill people over bullying, or her dying twice and coming back to life. Man, I don't understand how that made the script. Aogami's character has also only benefited in the new route. He gets a lot more characterization for the Demon Haunt. While he still is a bit of a blank slate, his relationship with Kei is far deeper than before. The way Aogami sees the world is influenced a lot by Kei. He cares deeply for him and supports him in any and all of his decisions, so much so that he even sacrifices himself so that Kei can live. Although Aogami gets revived at the end. Of course. I think he's a pretty nice character now, with his additional characterization and deeper bond with the protagonist. The only thing that bugs me is that this young man take my hand scene is played like 50 times over the course of the game. Yuzuru and Dazai also get their fair share of changes in the new Vengeance route. As a character, Yuzuru doesn't change that much, but what was already there gets fleshed out a lot. We get to see him in a lot of moments of weakness, like when he attacked an Ahobino when his sister was abducted, or when he has a mental breakdown in a dorm room when his sister got abducted the second time. He also has a vision of his own now for a better world, being one where people are neither advantaged nor disadvantaged from factors outside of their control, like his sister being terminally sick. I think he could have been a really good neutral alignment rep. His vision is like a compromise of Tao's and Yoko's vision for a better world. But of course we already have too many characters battling for screen time and somebody has to die. Him starting to respect his sister and her wishes was also a pretty nice development for him, and it actually made me really like him now in Vengeance. I don't really have that many good things to say about Dazai, unfortunately. Like, he did get better as a character, I think, and his friendship with Atsuta and Kei was sort of believable, needed a bit more build-up. I enjoyed him most in this role where he was the supportive guy who could cheer up people and help them, like with Atsuta when he needed help with Konsu. All of this is thrown out the window when Masuma shows up and he brainwashes Dazai. Or we don't really know if it is brainwashing or whatever. But holy shit, that really ruined his character for me. He becomes such an unbearable asshole after that. Even the Nahobino is done with his bullshit and immediately tries to kill him when he meets him in Empyrean. I hope that they would not miss the mark this time by just rushing his development, but oh well. At least he's a tiny bit better than in Canon of Creation. The last important character I wanted to talk about is Yakumo, and I honestly really enjoyed him in Vengeance. For starters, he gets an actual backstory this time, which is not only good, but also fits with the general theme of revenge. He endured a lot of tragedy caused by the Qadištu, but he still felt close to demons in general because he was also an outcast in human society. It fit him very well, and it also explained why his beliefs are so contradictory with his actions regarding Nuwa. His contradictory belief gets challenged this time around, and he faked deaths Nuwa for it, which was, despite the fake death, a pretty strong scene for him as a character overall. After Nuwa's death, he actually drops out of the race to the throne, and decides to follow his father's footsteps by protecting the people of Tokyo until the throne is claimed. Seeing him so distraught after Nuwa's death made him feel like a real genuine character, instead of just some angry guy. Honestly, he might be one of my favorite characters in Canon of Vengeance. He isn't just a soulless rider ripoff anymore, thankfully. So overall, I'm sort of disappointed. I did expect more from the story and characters writing-wise, yet it is an undeniable improvement over the original in many areas. I think that Vengeance the story could have been more than it ended up being if it was more disconnected from the original story and did its own thing. For example, the Baffle faction stuff in Taito didn't really make sense in Vengeance, since you need all of the build-up from Canon of Creation to really get what's going on. The only thing that I really loved was the new lore shit we got, and all makes sense now after 3 years. Don't get me wrong, I still love this game. The gameplay is just so good that it more than makes up for the story and characters. It's not the best Megaton game, at least in my opinion, but it is for sure up there as one of the best. And in all honesty, it could have been the best. So yeah, see you guys in another 2 months. Bye bye. Although all of this is thrown out of the window when oh holy shit.